Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome. Just real quick, we're going to have a presentation by Anton, who's the president and CEO of the Washington Hospitality Association. After that, you will have an opportunity to ask questions. To ask a question, please just indicate in the chat that you would like to ask a question. I will then call on you in order and let you ask your own questions. We will be recording this if anyone needs a copy afterward, and then I'll be sending out the materials after this to everyone who's on the call. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Anthony.
Well, everyone, thanks for joining us kind of quickly here on a Thursday morning. We're excited all of you could join us. I think today's going to be an exciting announcement, and I hope this starts a real feeling of excitement and joy that we can move forward as a state. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if I seem excited, I am. We were very appreciative of the governor's announcement that we didn't roll backwards earlier the week. And we do appreciate that we were able to keep the majority of our counties at 50% for Mother's Day and not close some of the counties that were on the edge. And yet at the same time, I think it really struck with us that it is, we need more than just a plan or a conversation about moving backwards. We really need a plan to move forward. And we wanted to bring this conversation to the forefront and get our state and our citizens talking about it. And one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation is a lot of what we heard from the governor's press conference on Tuesday was that there's not yet a plan, and that for, as you can see that lead quote on there, for the foreseeable future, we would intend to continue where we are now. And he had a variety of comments around this, and we think we can do better, and we want to work with the governor and
you handle whatever you need to handle.
encourage the state that we can move forward. When we're asked, when will Washington reopen? Again, he didn't have an answer yet. And so but when you look around the country and you talk about where everyone else is at, we're one of the few states that doesn't have a reopen plan, one of two. So if you look across the country where everyone else is at, 48 other states are either open at 100% capacity or have an announced date to move forward. Just this past week, the Democratic governors in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut announced plans to move forward by May 19th. California has announced to move forward by June 15th. And the President Biden said that by 4th of July, we will have enough people move forward. It's time to move forward. So we should grab this opportunity. Lots of other governors have had the same access information and been confident to put a plan forward. And we are committing to work with this governor that we can do the same. President Biden talked about it is time to move forward. We fundamentally, as a people, we want to be with others. We want to be social and see our grandparents. We've got graduations coming up. Summer is wedding season, and people need a plan to move forward. And we think it'd be really exciting to give people a date certain so they can plan when they can move forward. They can plan their wedding. They can plan, even if it's a delayed graduation ceremony, something moving forward, plan family reunions, and move forward together. So here is what we're announcing. Let's set a date. June 15th, it's time to fully reopen. Let's do it by June 15th. We're starting a petition, which we're going to ask everyone in the state, along with getting vaccinated, please sign the petition and ask us to move forward as a state. And let's set a date to reopen by June 15th. With that, there's a lot of information, but what I'd rather do is allow everyone in the press corps here today to ask questions and really get at the things that you're most interested in. So Nikki, with that, I'm going to kick it back to you.
So if you have questions, just indicate in the chat that you'd like to ask a question and I can call on you in order. In the meantime, Anthony, can you switch back to the map page just so we can see that again.
So if there's no questions coming in, I think some things that I have been asked as we were preparing for this, why June 15th? What's special about June 15th? One, it aligns us with California, where we share a lot of progressive values with. It would signal that the West Coast is ready to open on a similar time frame, and that this is some crazy out of line thing with health standards. I think it aligns us here on the West Coast with similar states. Two, if you look at vaccination rates and where vaccination rates should be by the end of May, somewhere around that third week of May, we should hit President Biden's target of 70% of eligible adults being vaccinated if we continue on our path of 50,000 a day. And if you look at the end of May, we could be approaching 80%. That gives us lots of time to rally as a community, focus on the important things we need to do, and then start moving towards reopening and plan for that. And so I think this gives us time to have a month to focus on vaccinations, not be distracted by other conversations, and know where we're headed forward as a state.
The question that we got in the chat is just for a link to the petition. I've put that in the chat for everyone. I will also be sending it out to everyone after this is over, along with the map and the press materials. I'm not seeing any other questions, and so let me give it one more minute.
Nikki, and wearing your older reporter hat, are there questions that you would think that probably people are thinking but haven't had a second to ask yet?
Yeah, I think one question is just, we've talked a lot about reaching herd immunity, and I think we heard that a lot in the governor's remarks earlier this week, the idea of reaching herd immunity. You did mention that if we keep up with current pace, we would reach something close to that. But I think that's something that people are very concerned about, is just making sure that we defeat this soundly.
No, I think that's a fair question. And to be clear, if those of you who've talked to me over the course of the year, you know I'm a data nerd. I said 70% of vaccinated or of eligible adults. Herd immunity tends to include the whole public. And that's where the CDC has come out and said herd immunity is unlikely, given that some people are going to say no to the vaccine. And so putting our economy on hold throughout the summer, while we try to get there less vaccinations at a time, when every other state has put a plan to move forward, we just didn't felt was the right way to approach it. So setting June 15th allows everyone who wants a shot to have a shot. It allows all of us as community leaders to dispel myths and get vaccinations out there and support our community in doing so. And it allows us to have a plan to move forward on our economy.
We've got a question from Mai. Mai, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Anthony. I was just wondering, you said you do want to work with the governor. So I'm just interested in hearing what your plan is in terms of, having this conversation, and what conversations have you had so far regarding this plan?
Well, we've had daily conversations with the governor's office throughout most of the pandemic. Some have been great, and we're always committed to work with the governor's office. I did share this plan this morning with the governor's office that we're going to move forward. And we really hope that this will, if the community really rallies around this petition and supports it, it really says, hey, the public is ready to join you, Governor, in reopening, and sends that strong message that we're willing to support him in announcing something that would reopen. Where they're at with the conversation, I think you'd have to take up with them. I think I don't know that they've had a chance to move forward on what we're talking about today.
We've got another question from Jerry Cornfield. Go ahead.
I just wondered, as I put in the chat, are the restaurants, the governor asked you to require restaurants to open and enforce sections for fully vaccinated people between now and June 15th or after June 15th as part of a reopening. Will restaurants do that? Are they willing to comply across the state, all 39 counties?
So Jerry, can I repeat your question to make sure I'm answering the right thing? And then if I'm off, will you tweak me a little bit, and then I'll try to give you my best shot at it. Does that sound fair?
Sure.
What I heard you say is, what do we think about the ability for industries to apply for 100% vaccination sections, and are the restaurants interested in doing that between now and then? Is that your question?
Yeah, and then just to add, I mean, basically to open them and enforce the sections, because that was an issue the governor mentioned the other day.
Yeah. So the governor's office did reach out when they were talking to large events and asked our association, and our board had a hearty conversation on would vaccinated only sections work in our industry. And as the governor said, we declined the opportunity to pursue that for a variety of reasons. But for small operators without multiple sections, it would create inequity in the industry about those who can and those who can't. And the time and the software available to do so and adopt it when we're so close to just being reopened felt like a distraction to what we really should be focused on, which is getting everyone vaccinated. So on the restaurant side of hospitality, we politely declined, but we're thankful to have been asked and to considered what the governor's office was looking at. So we're not interested, but the governors did ask, and the governor did report that on his press conference. On the lodging side and the event side, there is a conversation going on, and it's a logistics conversation of, it's an interesting concept, but we're not sure how it's going to work. So I think they're still having that logistics conversation about, is that a feasible thing for lodging and events? Did I answer your question, Jerry?
Sure. And you said maybe I didn't hear you, but you said you had presented your plan to the governor or the governor's office this June 15th date. When did you do that, and what was their response to the idea that you're going to have this petition and this public pressure on him?
So we shared it this morning with the governor's office, and I don't think they've had a chance to then really kind of flush it through their system. So I don't. They appreciated the sharing it. They appreciated that we've worked together during the whole pandemic, and sometimes we've agreed and sometimes we've not. And that I let them know this should be a supportive thing, and that I think if there's a lot of the public willing to support the governor to reopen us on June 15th, like California, I think that gives momentum to the concept.
Anthony, really quickly, we had a couple of reporters join late and missed the first part and just asked for a quick recap of what you're announcing today.
You bet. I'm going to jump to the Butler did it. And then Nikki, if you wanted me to do a little bit more than that, I can certainly do that. My staff gave me 3 screens on my computer, so let me actually see how I can function. There we go. So for those who were just able to join us, we were really appreciative that the governor did not roll us back on Tuesday. But what really became apparent during the press conference is right now we only have a plan to roll backwards. And what we really need to have is a plan to move forward and reopen. And so what we're laying out today is a petition and a request for everyone in the public to join and support Washington State moving forward and reopening by June 15th. And so the petition name is on there, and this should be a positive. And by doing it in June, it allows us to give us May to fully focus on vaccinations and doing what we can to get everyone who wants to be vaccinated, give them access, dispel myths, rally our community to hit President Biden's goals that he has laid out, and then set a set date forward by June 15th. Where we can move forward on our economy. And we really feel that this is important so people can set graduation plans and set wedding dates and plan for life. All these things we've missed so badly in the past year of not being able to get in touch with each other. Having a date moving forward, I think, is going to be a great rallying point and allows us as a community to focus together. Nikki, was that a decent recap there quickly?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And then I think I've gotten through. If I've missed anybody's question, please let me know. If anybody else would like to ask a question, now's your chance. So please indicate in the chat. And again, I will let you ask your own question. We've got a question from the Tri-City Herald.
Hello. Tri-City, is he there?
All right, I'll make an exception and read this question.
Okay.
If the state is fully open, what sense do you have of the industry being able to fully staff? I've had conversations with owners who have not been able to hire.
What a great question. And I think the answer is it's a little bit of an unknown. Right now, a lot of our employee base has gone to other industries that have honestly had a great business run during COVID. Grocery employment is up, and some of those other areas. As we start to shift back to normal, how many of those employees come back to the industry is something that's in front of us, and we'll learn. We've heard from many of our employees who are on unemployment. It took me 3 months to get my unemployment check and start getting into the system. If I'm going to get laid off again, or I'm going to be on for 2 weeks and be back out, I don't really want to come out. And so having a date certain will really give us a sense of how many are then saying, okay, now that I know I'm going to have my job and for more than 3 weeks, I'm willing to come back to work. And so we think having this certainty will help people move forward. But we're also going to learn this together. We are going to have somewhat of an employment issue moving forward, as we've lost a lot of our long-term employees to who've just had uncertainty for over 14 months now about, do they have a job? Do they have a career? Is my business going to be open? Some have left for other states. Some have left for other industries. So we hope by having a date certain, people can start setting a plan or willing to come back and provide great hospitality.
Anthony, I got a question in a direct message from Ruby DeLuna with KOW. The question is June 15th doable? And if it is, why is that the date that we chose?
I love that question. Thank you, Ruby. So let's talk about why June 15th. One, it aligns us with California, and so the West Coast has a general sense of when we're opening. California is a state that we share a lot of values with and progressive values with. So it aligns us for singular messaging on the West Coast. Two, if we look at what President Biden's challenge was, and let's get 70% of eligible adults vaccinated, and you look at the progression of 50,000 vaccinations a day, which is about what we've been averaging, through by about the third week of May, we should be there. And even if that rate slows down, that still gives us several weeks to catch up. So I think making sure that in May, we are rallying our communities. I know that Clark County is rallying, and Spokane community is talking about it, and Pierce County is rallying. And a lot of our community leaders in these counties are really talking about how to get everyone access and keep our focus there. By the end of May, I think all of us are highly confident that everyone who is willing to get vaccinated will have been vaccinated. Then that gives us a few weeks to start planning for reopening and moving forward with June 15th. So I think this gives us time to do this right. We're not asking it for Mother's Day. We're not asking it for the day after tomorrow. What we're asking for is let's do this right. So we really try to pick a responsible date that our state could and our values could rally around. Did I answer your question, Ruby?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
No problems. Good to hear you guys.
Can I follow up, please?
You bet.
Is this something that you had discussed with the governor or his office?
So this morning we talked about our plan to have a press conference this morning and what we're doing, and so we did inform them of what we're doing, and I hope that they're talking about it internally, but I don't know where they're at internally. We do meet daily with the governor's office and talk about the struggles and ways to work together. And while we haven't always agreed, we've had a cooperative working relationship on how to move our state forward. And I'm hoping that this is taken in that light, that this is something that we all as a community can work together on. And that when we have a date, and if the Washington citizens agree with us and sign this petition, we're giving ourselves permission to move forward.
And I have one more follow-up, if I may. So this is also this idea of aiming for June 15th kind of relies on, folks getting vaccinated. But at the moment, we're seeing the vaccination rate slowing down as far as I understand it. So what are you doing anything to encourage vaccination? do you think that could be the idea of June 15th reopening could be derailed if not enough people are vaccinated?
Well, one, let's get together and have a plan. And so I think that's reopening plan. I think when I showed Ruby I keep clicking on the wrong screen. When I showed the other states that were open, not all their plans are the same. Some have said, let's get X percentage of available adults vaccinated. And others have just set a date. Others have set some targets. Other states have said, we're going to turn over to the counties and focus other ways, but they have a plan to reopen. I think when we start working together with the governor's office, this plan could take different shapes. But what we're committing to is working with the governor's office and getting all Washington said, oh, let's have a target. It's kind of like, let's put a man on the moon or a person on the moon. Let's do this. We can do this. When you look at the vaccination rates, you are right. While it could be slowing down, at 50,000 a day, we would hit that 70% of eligible adults target by third week of May. This gives us 3 extra weeks to move forward from there. And I think that's why June 15th feels like a responsible date. And we are active in efforts in Clark County, in Pierce County, and communicating with our groups around the state about let's get vaccinated. And so and we're seeing really cool community efforts. I'm hopeful. There's a couple other kind of counties who are about to make announcements about partnerships with us, but I don't want to pull their, I want them to have their moment. But I think we're going to see hospitality operators around the state saying, we love our community. Let's support how we get vaccinated. Let's get the word out there and let's reopen.
Do we have any further questions? May has another question. Go ahead, May.
Hi again. I know some states have, I guess New Jersey comes to mind. They did a big announcement where, hey, if you get vaccinated, these breweries will give you free beer. Has there been any chatter in the hospitality industry of like similar incentives?
The idea of a shot for a shot, May, are you
I'm sincerely curious. I mean, obviously, getting people vaccinated is, and the governor has very much tied reopening to vaccinations. And obviously there has been other efforts throughout the country with the hospitality industry doing incentives. I'm curious if there's been any conversations among this state.
There are conversations going, and community is going to pick the right incentive. We would need a waiver or a change of liquor law to do the shot for a shot concept that has been done in other states. And we're not opposed to having a responsible conversation around that, but we would need a change in state law to do that. And I think people are kicking around the idea. I don't really know the progress on how far down the road that is, but I know the conversations have said, what can we do? But there's been lots of examples of other people and people in the industry offering incentives. Clark County is in the middle of developing an incentive concept in the restaurants. And again, there's a couple of other counties I know of that are getting ready to make announcements and partnerships with us and or just directly with hospitality in their communities. But I think a lot of operators really care about their employees. When we move forward, we want to continue to be the place that's safest to be in, and which means we want to have a strong community vaccination rate. So we're willing. If it hasn't already started, we're willing, but in many communities, this effort's already started. I hope I answered your question, May.
Yes, and it's my.
I'm sorry, I knew that. Gosh.
No worries.
See, and you said Anton, so you had it right and I screwed it up. Gosh.
All right, any final questions? Well, thank you all so much for joining. You all have my contact info. If you have further questions or want to be connected with operators in your community, you know how to reach me. I will be sending out the materials today. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great Mother's Day. Hopefully you get out into our restaurants and have a good time with your family this weekend.